Does this mean that you are an adventurer? That is close enough to the truth. Oh, I see. You must be an extraordinary adventurer, then. Although, forgive my ignorance, but I have not heard your mighty name before, Gaundano. I was traveling, you see, and I just happened to pass by. I am nobody famous. Traveling, you say? Though I regret having to waste the time of such a great adventurer, could you please tell me about the blackguards who attacked this village? It would be my pleasure, Warrior Captain Dano. Most of the knights who have attacked this village are already dead, so they will not be able to make trouble for the time being. Shall I go on? Already dead. Gaundano, did you strike them down? After listening to the way Gazef spoke, Ains realized that this world's form of address was Western style, and not Japanese style. In other words, it went in the order of name, then surname, and not surname, then name. At last, he had solved the mystery of why the chief looked so baffled when he had asked the chief to call him Ains. It was only expected that he would look like that when asked to address someone in such an unfamiliar way. After realizing his mistake, Ains covered it up with his salaryman's thick skin, and replied, "Well, that is not entirely accurate." Gazef picked up on the hint in Ains' tone, and turned his eyes toward the Death Knight. He must have smelled the faded scent of gore and death that came from it. "I have a couple of questions, may I know who that is?" "He is a servant that I have created." Gazef murmured in approval, and then looked Ains up and down with a keen gaze. "Then how about that mask?" "I wear it for reasons known only to a magic caster." "May I remove that mask?" "Sadly, I must refuse," Ains said as he gestured to the Death Knight. "It would not be good if I lost control of him." A look of shock flashed across the face of the chief, and gasps came from the villagers hiding within the chief's house. Perhaps he had sensed the change in the air and seen the look on the chief's face, but Gazef nodded deeply and said, "I see. Then, we best not take it off." "Thank you. Then, before that, I have a request you might not like to hear. This village was recently attacked by knights of the Empire, and if you gentlemen brought your weapons in, it might trigger unpleasant memories in the villagers. May I ask you to place your weapons in a corner of the village square, to put the people at ease?" "It is as you say, Gaundano. However, this sword was given to me by the king. I cannot set it down without his express permission." "Ains-sama, we will be fine." "Is that so, Chief Sama? Then, please forgive my unreasonable request, Warrior Captain Dano." "No, I see the logic in your thinking, Gaundano. If this sword had not been personally awarded to me by the king, I would gladly lay it aside. Then, could we sit down and discuss the details? Also, the sky is growing dark, and we would like to rest in this village for the night." "I understand. Then, let us return to my home together." In the middle of the chief's reply, one of the horsemen ran into the square. He was panting heavily, and had an urgent report. In a high-pitched voice, the horseman said, "Warrior Captain. We've sighted a lot of people around the village. They've surrounded the village and they're closing in. Part 3 Everyone, take heed," a calm voice spoke into everyone's ears. "The prey has entered the cage." The speaker was a man. He had no distinguishing features, and he would not stand out in a crowd. However, there was no emotion in his seemingly man-made black sclerae, or the scar on his face. "Offer up your faith to the gods." Everyone began their silent prayers, a shortened version of their usual praise to their gods. They had to spend time in prayer even when operating in another country. This was not complacency on their part, but a symbol of their faith in their gods. These men who offered everything to the slain theocracy, and the gods they revered were far more devout than the average citizen of the theocracy. This was why they could perform cruel acts without the slightest bit of hesitation, and why they felt no guilt for doing so. After their prayers, the eyes of every man present were as hard and cold as glass. "Begin." With that one single word, they neatly encircled the village in a way that would appear to onlookers as the product of long, hard training. Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit. These men were a black ops group from the slain theocracy. Though their reputation spread far and wide, little was known about their members. They belonged to one of the 6 scriptures who answered directly to the high priests of the slain theocracy. They were the Sunlight Scripture, whose mission was to exterminate demi-human settlements. However, there were very few of these men, who were the most involved of the 6 scriptures in combat. There were only around 100 of them in total. This was because the recruitment standards for the Sunlight Scripture were very strict. Entry required the ability to cast 3rd-tier divine magic, which was also the highest tier of magic that ordinary magic casters could reach. In addition, prospective recruits had to be in excellent physical condition, and they had to possess a strong will and deep faith. In other words, they were the elite among other elite combatants. The man quietly sighed as he watched his men disperse. Once they scattered to take their positions, it would be very hard to be sure of their movements. However, he was not worried about their skillful encirclement of the village. The Sunlight Scripture's commander, Nigan Grid Lewin, only felt the peace of mind that came with knowing that success was at hand. The Sunlight Scripture was not used to long-term clandestine operations in the field. As a result, they had missed 4 chances to finish the mission in the past. They were exceedingly careful every time they closed in on Gazef and his men of the kingdom, in order to avoid being spotted. If they missed this chance as well, these days of tracking and pursuing would drag on and on. Next time, I'd like to ask the other teams for help, and leave some of the work to them. Someone answered Nigan's gripes. That's right, we've always been specialized in extermination, after all. The speaker was one of the men who had stayed behind to protect Nigan. I mean, this is a strange mission. Usually, we would have backup from the Windflower Scripture for something as important as this. Indeed, I don't know why they only deployed us this time round. Still, this will be good experience for us. We can take this as training in infiltrating enemy territory. For all we know, that was what the people on top intended. Nigan said that, but he was very clear that another mission of this nature would be very unlikely. The orders he had been given were to assassinate the greatest warrior of the kingdom, the man famed in the surrounding countries for his matchless might, Gazef Stronov. This was not the sort of task which would usually be assigned to the Sunlight Scripture. Instead, it would have been the province of the theocracy's most powerful special operations unit, the Black Scripture, whose members wielded the power of heroes. However, it was not possible this time round. The reason was top secret, so he could not tell his subordinates, but Nigan knew the truth. The Black Scripture was protecting the holy relic Kasik Kuku in preparation against the resurrection of the catastrophe Dragon Lord, while the Windflower Scripture was busy chasing the traitor who had made off with a relic of the Miko princesses. Neither of them had the free time to help them. Nigan unconsciously felt the scar on his cheek. He remembered the only time in the past where he had forced to flee with his tail between his legs. The face of that girl with the jet-black demonic sword rose in his mind. Magic could have easily healed the wound without leaving a mark, but he had purposely left the scar to engrave the lesson of that humiliating defeat into his heart. That damnable Blue Rose. The members of Blue Rose were citizens of the kingdom, just like Gazef. Their priestess was the one who most drew his ire. Besides the fact that she was an infidel who worshipped another god, she had stopped Nigan while he was planning to attack demi-humans, and even believed that she was on the side of justice in doing so. Humanity is weak, and it uses any and all means to defend itself. Anyone who doesn't know that is an utter and complete fool. One of the subordinates seemed to have sensed the anger smoldering in Nigan's glassy black eyes, and interjected, but the kingdom is foolish too. Nigan did not answer, although he agreed with those words. Gazef was very strong, so in order to weaken him, they had to deprive him of his panoply. Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit. The kingdom was divided into the noble and the royal factions. Since they were opposed to Gazef, a prominent figure in the royal faction, the noble faction was easily led to take political action to eliminate him. They did not even pause to consider that the impetus for their deeds came from a foreign power. Gazef was a commoner who had risen to his current station by dint of his swordplay, and so the nobles despised him. And that had led to this conclusion. The kingdom's trump card would soon be lost by their own hands. That was a supremely foolish move to Nigan. They, the slain theocracy, might be divided into 6 sects, but whenever they needed to act, they did so as one. One reason for that was because everyone respected each other's gods. The other was because everyone knew that there were many inhuman tribes and monsters in this world, and that they would be in danger if they did not work together. Which is why everyone should walk the path of the righteous teachings together. Humanity should not fight amongst itself, but work hand in hand to bring about a better and brighter future. Gazef would be the sacrifice for that. Can we kill him? Nigan did not mock his subordinates' unease. Their prey was the kingdom's warrior captain, the strongest man in the region, Gazef Stronov. Eliminating him would be more difficult than attacking and exterminating the inhabitants of a huge goblin village. In order to dispel his underlings' fears, Nigan calmly replied, "It will be fine." Right now, he does not possess any of the kingdom's treasures, the ones which he is permitted to bear. Without them, killing him will be a piece of cake. No, it would be better to say that without them, this is our only chance to kill him. The kingdom's warrior captain, Gazef Stronov, was famed as the strongest fighter in the land. But there was a reason for that reputation beyond his extraordinary swordsmanship. That reason was the 5 heirlooms of the kingdom. Although only 4 of them were known, he was permitted to bear all of them. The gauntlets of vitality, that made their user immune to fatigue. The amulet of immortality, which constantly regenerated his wounds. The guardian armor, made of adamantite and enchanted to ward off critical hits. Razor's edge, the sword created and enchanted in pursuit of sharpness, which could slice through armor like the proverbial hot knife through butter. Even Nigan could not hope to triumph in a head-on attack against Gazef Stronov, whose offensive and defensive ability increased astronomically when he used those items. No, it might well be that no human could defeat him when he was like that. However, he did not have those treasures with him now, so this was a great chance for Nigan. And then, we also have a trump card of our own. This is a battle we cannot possibly lose. Nigan patted his chest lightly. In this world, there were 3 types of magic items which fell outside the usual types and classifications. The first kind were the relics from 500 years ago, left behind by the 8 greed kings who had conquered the world in an instant. The next kind came from the dragons, who were once the masters of the world before they were decimated by the 8 greed kings. The most powerful dragons, the dragon lords, made the secret treasures of dragonkind. And the third kind were the keystones of the slain theocracy, the artifacts left behind from when the 6 gods descended upon the world 600 years ago. Those were the 3 types. What Nigan had in his breast pocket now was a rare treasure that very few people in the slain theocracy possessed. In other words, it was Nigan's secret weapon. Nigan glanced at the metal band on his wrist. Numbers floated up from its surface, indicating that the appointed time had come. Then, begin the operation. Nigan and his subordinates began casting spells. They summoned the highest-ranking angels their magic would permit. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, I see, so there were people out there. Gazef peeked out at the people surrounding the village from inside the darkened house. He could see 3 people within his field of vision. They were slowly advancing on the village, while maintaining an even separation from each other. They were unarmed and were not wearing heavy armor. However, that did not mean that they were pushovers. Many magic casters disliked such equipment and preferred lighter gear. This suggested that they were magic casters. However, it was the winged monsters floating beside them which confirmed their vocations. Angels. Angels were monsters summoned from another world, and many people, particularly the citizens of the slain theocracy, believed them to be messengers of the gods. However, the priests of the kingdom ruled that these so-called angels were merely summoned monsters. While these religious disputes were part of the reason why the countries were set against each other, Gazef felt that their status as divine messengers was secondary to their strength as monsters. To Gazef, angels and demons, their similarly ranked counterparts, were stronger than many other monsters summoned using magic of a similar tier. Most of them had special abilities, and some could even use magic. They were troublesome foes, in his reckoning. Of course, that depended on the individual angel. Not all of them were difficult to beat. However, the angels this time round, with their shining breastplates and flaming swords, were of a type that was unknown to him. Ains was watching them with him from the side. He asked Gazef, who did not know anything and could not gauge their strength, "Who are these people? What do they want? I don't think there should be anything that valuable in this village." "Gaundano, you do not know either?" "Well, if it is not wealth they seek, then there can only be one other answer." Ains and Gazef locked eyes. "They must really hate you, Warrior Captain Dano. It comes with the job of Warrior Captain. However, this is troubling. Judging by the way the other side has so many people who can summon angels, they must be from the slain theocracy, and it's clear that the people carrying out this operation must be a special operations unit, the legendary 6 scriptures. It would seem that both in numbers or ability, the opposition is superior to us." Gazef shrugged, indicating the difficulty he was in. He might have seemed merely depressed on the surface, but inside, he was seething with anger and panic. "Well, they've certainly gone to a lot of trouble, using the noble faction to strip me of my gear. However, it's troublesome for that snake of a man to remain in the courts, so I guess it should be my good fortune to be able to recognize his villainy here. Still, I didn't expect the slain theocracy to have their eyes on me." He snorted. He did not have enough men, he was under-equipped for a battle like this, and he had no plan in mind. In short, he had nothing. Although there might still be a trump card he could use. "Is that an archangel flame? It looks similar enough, but what is a monster like that doing here? Could it have been summoned by magic too?" "That means..." Gazef turned to look at the mumbling Ains. With a hopeful look on his face, he asked, "Gaundano, if it is all right with you, would you be willing to let me hire you?" There was no answer, but Gazef could feel the weight of Ains' gaze beneath the mask. "You may name your price and I will meet it. Please permit me to refuse. Even the loan of that knight you summoned would be fine." "I must refuse that as well." "I see then, what if I conscripted you in accordance with the kingdom's laws?" "That would be the worst decision you could make." "I did not plan to say such harsh words, but if you insist on using the authority of the kingdom to conscript me, then I would be compelled to put up a bit of resistance." The two of them looked wordlessly at each other. The first to avert his eyes was Gazef. That would be frightening indeed. We would be wiped out before even crossing blades with the gentlemen of the slain theocracy. Wiped out, well, that's a good joke. However, I am glad you understand me. Gazef narrowed his eyes and looked at Ains, whose head was nodded in thanks. His words just now were not a joke, Gazef's instincts told him. Making an enemy of this magic caster would be a fatal error. In the face of this life-threatening danger, his instincts were more reliable than his meager intellect. Who was he? Where did he come from? As Gazef thought, he looked at Ains' strange mask. What did he look like under the mask? Was he someone that he knew? Or, what's wrong? Is there something on my mask? No. I simply felt that mask was very special. Since that mask is used to control that monster, then it must be a very powerful magic item, am I correct? Well, about that. I should say that it's a very rare and valuable item. One could even say that it was exclusive. Possessing a potent magic item implied that the possessor was a skilled individual. By that logic, Ains must have been a very talented magic caster. Gazef felt a little saddened for not being able to secure his aid. Although part of him hoped that as an adventurer, Ains would accept that request. I see that it's meaningless to keep going on about this. Then, Gaundano, please take care of yourself. Once again, thank you for saving this village. Gazef removed his metal gauntlet and shook Ains' hand. Originally, Ains was thinking of removing his own Jarngraper to return the courtesy, but in the end, he did not do so. Still, Gazef paid it no heed. He gripped Ains' hand tightly and said, I am truly, truly grateful to you for protecting these innocent villagers from being slaughtered. Also, I know it is very selfish of me, and I have no authority to make you do anything, but I hope you can protect the villagers here, just one more time. Right now, I have nothing to give you, but I hope that no matter what, you will heed my plea. I beg you. About that, if you should ever visit the royal capital, I will give you anything you desire. I swear this on the name of Gazef Stronov. Gazef let go of Ain's hand, making to kneel, but Ains extended his hand to stop him. There is no need to go that far. Very well, I shall protect the villagers. I swear that on the name of Ains Ulgaun. After hearing Ains swear on his name, Gazef breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you very much, Gaundano. Now I have nothing more to worry about. All I need to do now is charge boldly ahead. Before that, please take this with you. Ains took out an item and handed it to the smiling Gazef. It was a small, strangely carved statuette. There did not seem to be anything special about it. However, if it is a gift from your good self, I will gladly accept it. Then, Gaundano. Time grows short, but I must now leave. Will you not wait until nightfall before setting out? The opposition should have spells like dark vision, and the like, so night fighting is not to our advantage, but I cannot imagine they will be hampered by it. Also, we also need to let you see how we stand or fall. I see. As expected of the kingdom's warrior captain, your keen insight is truly worthy of praise. Then, I wish you all the best, warrior Captain Dano. And I wish you a safe journey home, Gaundano. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Ains quietly watched Gazef's back shrinking into the distance as he rode off. Although her master seemed to be thinking about something, Albedo did not inquire further. When I first saw the humans here, I could not help but think of them as insects, but after speaking with them, I have come to be fond of them, like small animals. Is that why you swore on your glorious name to protect them? Perhaps, no, I should say that it was in response to how he bravely rode to his death. Ains admired it. He admired Gazef's determination, his strength of will that he did not have. Albedo, order the servants to search out the ambushers around us, and knock them out once they are found. I will do so at once. Ains Sama, the village chief and the others are here. As Ains turned to look at Albedo, he caught sight of the chief and two other villagers coming over. They reached Ains' side, panting heavily. Filled with tension and unease, the chief spoke immediately, as though breathing were a luxury he could not afford. Ains Sama, what should we do? Why did the warrior captain leave us behind and not protect us? The chief's words were filled with fear, but there was an undercurrent of anger there as well. He is doing what he must do, Chief Dano. The foe has their eye on the warrior Captain Dano, and if he stayed here, the village would become a battlefield. The enemy will not let you flee either. He left this place for your sake. I see, so that was why the warrior captain left. Then should we remain here? Of course not. They will come to kill you after they are done with the warrior Captain Dano. As long as you remain within their encirclement, you will have nowhere to run. However, while the foe is dealing with the warrior Captain Dano, you will have a chance to flee. You should take it. So that was why the warrior captain rode out in force with his men. He planned to use himself as bait and lure the enemy away with a head-on attack. The chief red-facedly lowered his head as he heard about the warrior captain's slim chances. The man was riding to his death just to give them a chance to flee. He cursed his inability to understand the man's sacrifice, and how he mistook Gazef's courage for selfishness, and maligned him for it. I can't believe I jumped to conclusions and wrongly blamed a good man. Then, Ains Sama, what should we do now? What do you mean by that? We live near the forest, but there's no guarantee that we won't be attacked by monsters. We were just lucky and thought that this place was safe, so we gave no thought to self-defense, and in the end, not only did we lose our friends and loved ones, but even became a burden. Now it was not just the chief, but the villagers behind him who had looks of regret on their faces. That could not be helped either. Your attackers were professional soldiers. If you had tried to resist, you might have all been dead before I got here. Ains was trying to comfort the villagers, but none of them felt comforted at all. The fact was that no matter what pretty words he said, the loss of the villagers was an undeniable tragedy. All they could hope for was for time to heal their wounds. Village Chief Dano, there is no more time. You must move quickly so as not to waste the warrior captain's determination. I see then, Ain-sama, what will you do? I will stay here and observe the situation, and then wait for a good time to escort you all away. We are always making trouble for you, Ain-sama, really we think nothing of it. Because I made a promise to the warrior captain Dano. In any case, gather all the villagers into one of the larger houses. I will further protect it with magic. Part 4. He could feel his horse's agitation through his feet. Even a trained warhorse, no, it was because it was a warhorse that the beast knew it was riding into death. There were only 4 or 5 of the enemy surrounding the village, so there was a large gap between each of them. However, their encirclement was most likely airtight. In other words, they had set a trap for him, and if he sprang it, he would die. Even so, Gazef was still determined to break through them. No, going by the present circumstances, a forceful breakthrough was the only choice for him. He had no chance against them in ranged combat. If he had skilled archers by his side, it would be a different matter. If not, he had to avoid a long-range battle with magic casters. Fighting a defensive battle would be even more stupid. It would be one thing if they had stone-walled houses, or a sturdy fort to fight from, but he had no confidence at all in the ability of wooden walls to stop magic. For all he knew, both Gazef and the houses might go up in smoke together. Therefore, the last tactic he could use was a thoroughly unethical one. That was to say, he would have to shift the theater of battle into the village, and draw Ain's Olgaun into the fight, thus forcing his involvement. But if he did that, it would completely defeat the purpose of coming here in the first place. Therefore, Gazef had to put himself into danger. Hit the enemy hard and draw in the sentries from around the village. After that, fall back immediately. Do not hesitate and miss your chance to flee. After hearing the energetic replies from behind him, Gazef frowned. How many of the men here would be able to go back alive? They were not any more talented than ordinary people. Nor were they born with superpowers or special talents. They were just a group of men who had trained hard under Gazef. Losing the fruits of his labor here would be a terrible waste. Gazef was going to make a stupid, senseless sacrifice, and his men were going to follow him into it. He wanted to apologize to these men, that he had drawn in with him, but once he turned around and saw them, those words died in his mouth. What he saw were the faces of true warriors, fearless men who knew where they were headed, and who had swallowed any complaints about the matter. There was no need to apologize for the looks on his men's faces, that look which said that they knew they were riding into danger, but they would go into it regardless. One by one, the men shouted to the embarrassed Gazef, "Don't worry, warrior captain. Yeah, we all came here of our own free will, to fight and die by your side, warrior captain. Please let us protect our country, our people, and our friends." There was nothing left to say. Gazef returned their shouts with a thunderous cry, then, forward. Tear their guts out. Oh ha hi. Gazef's men spurred their horses forward to follow their leader. The galloping horses shot across the plains like an arrow loosed from a bow. Still mounted, Gazef drew his bow and knocked an arrow to the string. Though his horse shook and shuddered beneath him, Gazef calmly drew the string back. The loosed arrow struck its target unerringly, piercing the head of the frontmost magic caster, or at least, that was what he thought would happen. Che. It was useless after all. Maybe if I had a magic arrow, but I don't have what I don't have. Griping about it here is pointless. The arrow bounced off like it had struck a sturdy helmet. That supernatural hardness must have been the work of magic. Just as Gazef had said, in order to shoot through magic that protected against ranged attacks, he would need a magic weapon of his own. Since Gazef did not have a weapon like that, he stopped shooting and put away his bow. The magic casters began their counterattack and cast their spells. Gazef focused his energies and took a stance in order to resist their magic. Just then, the horse between his legs whinnied loudly and reared up, its front legs kicking the air. Go! 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 He tightly gripped his reins and leaned forward, practically hugging the horse. Fortunately, his swift reflexes kept Gazef from being thrown off. While it had caused a sheen of cold sweat to bloom all over his body, at the very least, he had managed to suppress his brief panic. There was something more important before him. A flustered and panting Gazef lashed his mount's flanks, but the horse remained still, as though someone more important than its rider were giving it orders. This strange phenomenon could only mean one thing. Mind-controlling magic. The horse had been affected by such a spell. Gazef might have been able to fight off its effects, but the affected party was not a magical beast, but a mere warhorse, so resistance was not to be expected. Anger flared up in Gazef for not predicting such an obvious form of attack. He leapt off his horse, and his galloping subordinates guided their mounts around him, flowing past him on both sides. Warrior Captain. The last men of the group slowed down, extending their hands. They wanted to help Gazef onto their horse, but the angel looking down upon them from the heavens swooped down faster. Gazef drew his sword and swung at the angel. The steel blade became a swift flash of light. The stroke of the kingdom's strongest man was enough to cleave a man's body in two. But the angel was not a man, and although it had taken a grave wound to its torso, it was not slain yet.